Hello everyone, how are you all doing? Let's continue where we left off in the last episode by adding more waves. We got some work to do with that, but also some work to do to display the correct info about enemies and the waves. But before we start, if you enjoy this content, please hit the like button and also the subscribe one. There will be more videos in this tutorial, so make sure you don't miss them. But now, let's begin. Let's begin by taking a look at our current state of the game to see where we're at and what we need to do for our second waves and all other waves to start working. So the first wave is coming as it's supposed to. We got our turrets working, shooting bombs and whatnot. And as soon as this wave is over, either all of them have been killed or they reach the end. When that happens, we should start a timer to spawn the next wave and continue doing this until there is no more waves to be spawned. But first we need to figure out some way of killing them as soon as they reach the end. So let's do that first. In our update enemy move, where we get the current position and direction, we are moving, making sure we can move, but we also check whether or not we are at the end. And if we are at the end, then we want to kill the enemy. And the simplest way to do this is to add a method that kills the enemy. So e.kill, that's enough, I think. So let's go to our enemy, and where we have hurt, public, void, kill. Let's make a comment here. Is for killing enemy when it reaches the end. Or whatever we want to kill it for. Maybe there's a special ability that kills all enemies within a certain radius. Who knows? But we have this method now, so alive equals false. And I think that is all we need, and we can say health equals 0, 2, just so we don't get any weird bugs. So let's take a look at our game now and see if they die when they come over here. Actually, before we start, let's add a system.out.println alive is lost. Later on, when we add lives to our game, like a normal tower defense, we know where to go in order for us to remove one life or 1 HP or whatever. So whenever they reach the end, they also take away 1 life from the player. So let's see what happens. A life is lost. All right, that is working. Perfect. What we want to do now is to add a check to see if there is any more enemies currently in the wave. If there is no more enemies, then start the timer. And once the timer is over, the next wave spawn. But I'm looking at the code and we have too much of the wave manager logic in our enemy manager. For some reason, I didn't think about it. But we can start by moving this update wave manager, remove it, and move that into the actual playing. Before enemy manager, we say wave manager dot update. It's in playing, we should have all the logic. And we also want to move this section right here. Is it time for a new enemy? Then we spawn the enemy. And we want to move that to the playing as well. So underneath our wave manager, is it time for a new enemy? Spawn enemy. So we go back to our enemy manager, take these two methods, move them into playing, right underneath our update, and we can remove this playing because we already are in playing, and we can remove this get wave manager with just wave manager like so. But in our spawn enemy, we can comment this out so we know how it looked. We call enemy manager dot spawn enemy, and we pass in this one, like so. And we create this method, not at the bottom, but at our, let's put it above add enemy. So we just add enemy, next enemy. Simple as that. And then we save that one and we go here, remove that. And now I think we have the code on the correct spot. So if we run it now, it should work just as before. So let's try it. They're spawning as they should. And the last one should be a bat, and I think everything is working and no errors. Good. Now we can actually check whether or not we should spawn a new wave or not. So first we need to make sure that all the enemies are dead. So if is all enemies dead, and we make a bracket there, create the method. First we add a loop to check all the enemies in the enemy list. So for enemy wave, not wave manager, enemy manager dot get enemies. If e dot is alive, and if there is a enemy alive, that means not all enemies are dead, so return false. If he doesn't find any alive enemies, that means all of them are dead, so return true. But this method right here can give us a false true statement, meaning that all enemies have not yet been spawned, but we managed to kill them faster than they spawn. That would still return true here, but that would crash it. So we need to make sure that there are no more enemies to be spawned. So first we check if wave manager dot is there any more enemies in wave, because we can use this method that we made in our previous episode that simply just checks whether or not there are more enemies to be spawned. If there's more enemies to be spawned, then we return false, meaning all enemies are not dead. Let's assume this one returns true, that all enemies are dead, there are no more enemies in the wave. So then we need to check whether or not is there more waves to be played. Otherwise, we're complete. First we add a check for if is there more waves. And this one is, let's create it first. And this one is going to return pretty much the same as what this one does, but we just do like return wave manager dot is there more waves. And we're gonna create that method in our wave manager, and let's remove this text. And this one does exactly like the one above, but for waves instead. So return wave index is less than waves dot size. So this returns true as long as the wave index is less than the current amount of waves. So let's say this one returns true as well, that there are more waves, and then we can actually start timers. We need to check timer, and we will need a increase wave index. First, we want to check if the timer has reached the limit for the next wave. So if is wave timer over. And if it is over, then we increase the wave index, like so. But we want to check whether or not it is over, and if it started even. But before we can actually check the timer, we want to start the timer. So wave manager dot start wave timer, and we're going to call this over and over, but that's all right, because it's only going to be able to be called once. So take that away and place it underneath our update. So start wave timer, nothing special, we simply say wave start timer equals true. And let's create a boolean, private boolean wave start timer. So if it's false, it goes to true. If it's true, it's already true. So that's all right. And in our update, if wave start timer is true, then we want to update the same type of tick that we do for our enemy spawn. And we add the integers first. So private int wave tick limit equals, say, 15 seconds. Private int wave tick equals wave tick limit. No, that should be 0 actually. Actually, it's 15 times 60, because this is once per update, just like here, but let's rearrange them. 60 times 15, so 15 seconds. So wave tick plus plus wave tick is more or equal to wave tick limit. Then we wanna say wave index ++. Actually, I just realized that we do need to have +1 down here. It will be a little bit different than this one, because in our playing we first check all dead, yes. Is there more waves, meaning that there could be 4 waves, but we're currently on the index 3, which is the 4th wave. So this one would return true, and in our wave manager, when the timer is over, then we increase by 1. So this would be 4, and the size would be 4, and that would be a index array out of bounds. Then we need to go back to our playing. So here we start the timer. Then we need to check whether or not the timer is over. Not that one actually, we do that in our wave manager. So here we simply check, or rather here, in this method. And what we do here is we call the wave manager. Wave manager is wave timer over. And we create that method too. Return, remove that, and remove or move it up a bit. Update, like here. How do we check whether or not the timer is over? Let's just add here. Wave tick timer over equals true. So we add yet another boolean. That one returns is false by default, then it goes to true. So what we do here is to return wave tick timer over. Actually, we don't want to increase the index here, I think. So we're going to remove that. We're going to see. This is a little bit jumpy back and forth, but public void increase wave index. Wave index ++. And here we say wave tick timer over equals false. Wave start timer equals false. So we set all of them to false and increase the index. And we do that when the wave tick is over. So wave manager dot increase wave index. And we can remove some comments here. I think this is going to work, but let's create yet another wave. So let's copy this one, create waves. And this one starts with a night. As soon as they all are dead, that one should start. So let's give it a go. I have no idea if this is going to work. It's a lot of code before any testing. All right, the first wave seems to work fine. So now all the enemies are disappearing, and in 15 seconds from now, there should be some more enemies to spawn. Don't see any enemies. And I think I know why. In our playing, where we say, is there time for new enemy? Then we spawn it. But here we check, is there time for new enemy? Meaning the tick has now reached, which is going to be true. Then we have another method here asking, is there more enemies in the wave? Current enemy index is still at 10, but the size of the wave is equal to the previous one. So we need to reset the index, and we also need to clean the current enemy list. So first we're going to start by going to our playing. If the time is over, let's add some brackets. We say enemy manager dot get enemies dot clear. Then we say wave manager reset enemy index. And let's create this method too in our wave manager, and all it does is enemy index equals 0. And let's go to the top, and instead of 15 seconds, let's go 5. 5 is good enough here. Let's try it again. Hopefully this is going to work much better. So the first wave is starting out just like it should. Now we want to know what happens when all the enemies have been killed off or disappeared. So in 5 seconds now there should be another wave. So 3, 2, 1. My counting was a bit off, but wave number 2 have started. So that's great. We actually got it to work. Good job. Let's see what happens And all of them have been killed off. No errors! Yay! It's working! So now we want to add some visuals that we can see current status of the wave and how many waves there are left, and also timer to the next wave. So let's do that next. How many waves there are left and etc. We're gonna need a few getters. So let's go to our wave manager. We will need a wave index to get the current one. So public int get wave index. Return wave index. And to get the amount of seconds left for our next wave, we should probably return a public float get time left, and it will display in seconds, but we want to return it with 1 decimal. So first we need to convert the tick into seconds. So float seconds left, or seconds left equals, to get amount of seconds left, we wave tick limit minus wave tick. And, or rather, not seconds left, but ticks left. And then we return ticks left divided by 60.0. This one returns the amount of time left in seconds. So in our playing, where do we have our draw? We should have render here somewhere. Draw wave infos. Yeah, because there's more than one. And create method. And in this method, we want to check if the timer have started. So if wave manager is wave timer started, then we draw it. But we need to make this method too. Public boolean is wave time started, return wave start timer. So this one returns the current status if the timer has started or not. And if that's the case, in here we want to first get the time, which is float time left equals wave manager dot get time left. Then we want to draw it, but I think we need to move this over to our action bar soon, but let's just see if it works first. G dot draw string time left. For our X, we want to have it at 250 mouse Y, no, but 700 maybe. And at the end of the string, we say plus time left. I think this is going to work, so let's give it a try and see what happens. All right, all the enemies are now gone, and we have a timer. It's looking like shit, but it's actually working. Good, now we need to move that over to our action bar, make it bigger, and find a better place. So let's do that. First, let's move this section right here to our action bar. So UI, action bar, move it up here. And in here, draw. We add a section for wave info. Draw wave info G. Then we create this method. So, and we paste this. And instead of wave manager, it's playing dot get wave manager is wave manager started. And the same for our time left. Like so. Now we should have it more correct spot. But, let's add a specific color for this one. So g dot set color dot. Let's begin with black. It always a good start. But we only want to display the time left with 1 decimal. So the way we do that, we're going to use a new class we never used before, which is a private decimal formatter. And we're going to import this class. And this one will be equal to new decimal format. In here, we give it a rule, looking like 0.00. By saying this, we're gonna have 2 decimals, 3 decimals, 4 decimals, and so on. But we only want 1, and that's all we need for now. And down here at our value that we actually want to format, we create a string formatted text equals formatter dot format, and here we pass in that value, or rather the float. So this one returns the value but in a formatted string, and since we don't need to use the value to anything else but to display it, we can do it like so. So time left, formatted text, and now we give it a try. So if that was correct, then we should have a 1 decimal place, yeah. But we need to make it bigger and move it a little bit, so let's do that. In here we can actually just comment that out. We can actually copy this line, and instead of that one we say, and we just give it a random number 123.456 float, like so. And then we comment this out so we can see it constantly and move it around. So now it's time to use the debug. So we got a good position. Let's make the text bigger as well by changing the font. And we can actually copy this part right here from our draw displayed tower in our action bar and just place it up here. Set new font, but let's say 20 is the size we want. And let's try it now. It's a bit, it needs to move to the left, so 450 instead. And taking a look at the result after moving it a bit around and changing the size, it's looking a lot better now. So we set the size to 20 by adding the font that we copied from just below, but set the size to 20 instead. And the position of the text is 450 and 660. So now we can uncomment these sections out. We can remove that one and comment that section back, like so. So if everything's working now, then the timer should look a lot better than it did just recently. And now the timer should start, and it's looking a lot better. 2, 1, and it spawns. Perfect. Now we want to draw some other info as well. But first let's add a private void draw wave timer info in its own method actually. So let's copy this. So then we copy or cut it all out and paste it here, and then draw wave timer info like so. Then we want draw enemies left info G, and then we want a draw waves left info G. So let's create these two first. And these two methods will be a lot easier to display. So we start with waves. Let's g.draw string. But actually, let's remove this line here and place it before any of the info, so all of them have the same type of font. So in our draw waves left info, we want to draw, or we want to say waves or wave plus current plus slash plus size, and we get these two values. Int current equals playing dot get wave manager dot get wave index, which is the current wave. And I think we need to do +1, but we'll see. Yeah, let's do +1 because it's the index 0, so it's the first one. So we need to have current +1, and we get int size from playing dot get wave manager dot get waves dot size. Simple as that. And let's place it the same X, but the Y will be 690 maybe. We'll see how that looks. Let's start it. Yeah, that's looking good. So wave 1 out of 2. Perfect. And for our enemies, we say g.drawString enemies left plus remaining. And we get int remaining equals playing dot get enemy manager dot get amount of alive enemies. And this method, we don't have it, so we need to add it. And what this one simply does is add a integer size equals 0. We're gonna start by 0. Then we loop for enemy e enemies if e dot enemy is alive size plus plus and then return size. So we create a variable called size, and every time we find an enemy that's alive, increase it by 1 and then we return it. I think this is the easiest way to do it, so let's stick with it for now. Can maybe change it later. So enemies left, remaining, spot 450 plus 20 plus 30, so 720 I think is gonna look good. Let's give it a try. Enemies left 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so it's working correctly. Maybe we can move it a little bit to the left. So instead of 450, we go 425. But let's change that for all of them. And now, final result. Let's see how it looks. And when the enemy is starting to die off, the ticker should go down, which it does. So let's see what happens when there's a pause here. It returns 0. And when the enemy is starting to come up again, so it's starting to function a lot better. The font and everything around it, graphic wise, is kind of ugly, but we just want it to work, and then we can work on improving the quality of the graphics when we are pretty much done with the game. But for now, we got the ticker, we got the information, timer's working, enemies coming, and this is a good progress. So yeah, it's working great. Alright, this is a good stopping point. We got a lot done in these last 2 episodes. We can now have actual waves spawn, which is very cool. Even though the visuals can use some work, or rather a lot, this is not something we should focus on right now. That comes later, when most of the game is complete. I hope that you've learned something in this episode, and if you did, why not press that like button and make sure to subscribe. There is more episodes to come before we're finished. I want to say thank you all for watching, and take care now. I hope to see you in the next update as well. Cheers!